We have AllPro Cannabis. This is the Supreme. Bo has a cannabis farm in southern Colorado. I believe 400. How many acres?
140.
Tell your story, man.
2016, I had some guys. I've always been a consumer of cannabis. It's helped me in many different ways, just through my injuries and mental stuff that I've been dealing with, and it's always kind of been great for me. So someone told me it would be financially irresponsible for you to not be investing in cannabis. And so literally after I heard that, I figured out how to go get a license. And I'll never forget, I told my dad, I said, hey man, I'm about to go get a cannabis license. And so I'll never forget, my dad's from southern Arkansas, rural Arkansas. And he was like, so let me get this right, son. He's like, you think you just about to go get some land and grow some marijuana? And I said, no disrespect, Daddy, that's exactly what I'm about to go do. And I did. I went and got a license, about 140 acres, had city utilities on there. And, I started building. I started with outdoor. I started with a greenhouse. I had a little trailer. And, I'm cycling through growers. I'm learning about the plant. And, for people who don't know, it's a pretty strenuous and rigorous process. It's highly regulated still. So they're just not handing out license. They're pricey. They cost a lot. Yeah, they're pricey. A story about that, when I'm submitting my application to they're called the MED, Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division. They're police. We're sitting there going through my application. He's like, where's the lease at? I was like, I don't got a lease. I was like, I got the deed. So he was like looking at me. He's like, well, how can you afford all this? I got a little snapshot of, this post football. I'm straight.
Right.
Here's a little snapshot of my checking account. He's just kind of looking at me like kind of in awe. They don't expect me to be able to do this. So young. Yeah. So just the resistance that I've had to deal with just getting into the space. But fast forward, I found the operations that fit me. Obviously, I built facilities from the ground up so I can grow the most premium product. The best thing and the most important thing about cannabis is having a clean environment where the plants thrive in. They say if your plants don't grow right, and this is just in gardening in general, you don't blame the plant, you blame the environment. So I found a way to, build an environment and build buildings that, are great for growing this. And that's how the brand was introduced. I call it AllPro because, this is the path and this is the industry that I come from. I believe in, being the best at everything I do. And, AllPro in NFL means you're one of the best. So that's what I came up with. And, here we are. We launched our brand.
What is the three different, what do we got here though?
So
the blue, the green, and the red.
Blue is our hybrids, and then pink is indicas, and then the green is our sativas. That's how we kind of color code everything. These Dear Mamas are, this was a new one that I launched after my mom passed. So this is kind of a dedication to her. So all my special strains and new exotic stuff go in there for her. And we got about 20 different strains. We rotate. We're always finding new stuff. Genetics are huge in the space. I really listen to the customers and see how they want to feel and what they're expecting. And, that's how I kind of select strains. So, if someone's looking for something for sleep or, they're...
Yeah, I was just about to ask, how does AllPro play into the medical role of cannabis use?
Well, the whole plant is medicinal. It started from that. That was the whole purpose of it from inception. And, obviously there's a lot of propaganda and stories that come with, why it is looked at the way it is. But, this was a plant from hundreds and hundreds of years ago that they were using for anxiety. They were using for pain. They were using to spark their creativity. They were using to people who were searching for food, or the cavemen. They were trying to suppress their hunger. So these are... this is a plant that's been used for all these different reasons from, way back. So to be able to just be in the space now, and I almost feel like I'm on assignment because there's still people that are locked up in jail and prison right now for, unviolent offenses, and just from this plant specifically, So I feel like I have a duty to them. And then also just, with the ancestors, no one really had this opportunity to be in this space. This is truly an industry where you were able to start with everybody else, unlike, every other industry, beverages, food, business.
Been blocked out.
Yeah, we never got to start at the same time with everybody else. So, this is bigger than Bo. It's bigger than, the brand, and it's about bringing and creating a new story and a different narrative, of the plant and of the industry. So I'm just consistently excited about it, and I love what I'm doing, and this has definitely been the transition for me and finding out what else I love to do, because it's hard to replace, something like football. Like, there's nothing like it. You're the man in the arena.
Right. Was it hard for you when you was done? Like when you were like you said, you went to, for those that don't know, when you were your last year here, where'd you go? You went to Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
And what's up?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard. I hurt my neck there, and when they say you never know when it's your last play, that is truly real. Like, we don't think that, but you might not play ever again.
Right.
Your mentality is like, all right, cool, I'm a rehab, I'm gonna be right back out there. But next thing you know, years pass, and I get no phone calls, and the games are going on. The league is just continuing on.
Now you got a fantasy team.
Yeah. Now you're being asked to join the fantasy teams. So I always tell guys, don't be sad that it's over. Be happy that it happened.
Right.
And they call it in the NFL for a reason, not for long. And I used it as a launching pad into what was next. And I will always be thankful for the game of football, because it helped, mold me into the businessman that I am now. Like, a lot of stuff that we use and took to help us make great athletes is the same stuff that you're going to use and carry on to make you a great businessman. I love the competition. A lot of people in business, they don't want that. They don't want that. They don't got to deal with Keith Bullucks. I'm used to dealing with that type of stuff. That stuff don't faze me. We can have the tough conversations. It might get heated. It might get excited. But I know it's because I'm trying to be the best. And if you ain't with that shit, you're not going to be on my team.
Right. That's
what are we here for if we ain't trying to be great at something?
We ain't trying to win. What's the point of playing?
Yeah, so that's the mindset and the mentality I take into AllPro. And, when people actually do buy and consume, I know they feel that love and that commitment with every joint they smoking.
Bullseye View. I'm the host with the most, baby. Podcasting for the masses, and I'm coming correct.